Hello, Year 5. Welcome once again to another shared reading session. I'm going to try and sound a little bit more upbeat, like my normal self in class. Unfortunately, it is quite tricky to sound like that outside of class because normally, I'm sure you realise, I jump around the classroom and do things like that, and it's quite hard to do that with a laptop on my lap. So if I break it, I'm going to blame all of you, especially you, Joe Linda, if it breaks, okay? Because I'll try and sound more like me. I don't know what I sound like, to be honest, but you get my idea. Anyway, we're going to carry on with Warhorse today. So we're going to do the next set of reading. I've got some questions, and just like last session, just like we do in class. Just as a quick thing, when I was looking at some of your answer sheets, please fill in the answers on the sheet. And when you do it, I don't really want long answers. It's not a writing task. It's not like if we're doing literacy. This is more like reading. So it's underlining in those keywords and just putting the information in. So try and make your answers as short as possible. They don't need to be in sentences. They don't need to be anything like that. It's just trying to get the information across, because later on, when you're in year 6, when you're doing your SATs, you don't need to answer in full sentences. You don't need to. You just need to give the information to answer the question. If it's too long, you might lose the mark. And even if you don't lose the mark, you might waste time. So, yeah. Okie doke. So, we're looking at Warhorse. I'm going to be carrying on with this. We now got a much better idea about it from this front cover, haven't we, really? The idea of this horse. So, we've got the horse and the characters on the front. We don't really know what's going to happen with them yet, but you can probably take a good guess from the characters and what they're wearing. I was going to ask everyone, when do you think this book was written? Not as in, like when did Michael Morpurgo write it, but as in, when's it set? When do you think this story sort of set? What sort of clues do we have that could be helping? So why did they get the horse? What does that tell us? Would someone get a horse like that now? If it was written in the Roman times, would that make sense from the clothing they're wearing, from what we know about the characters? Let's just have a little think about that. Okay, this week we're going to be focusing on the skill of inferring. Now, inference is one of the hardest skills to do, because what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to really understand the text you're reading, and then you need to be able to get an opinion from it. So we've got our skill here. We read the question that we want to try and answer. We identify the question type, where, when, why. Identify the main words in the question. So what are we trying to find out? Identify how the question relates to the text. So the question, how it connects to the text. Okay? So what is the question asking us to do to get from the text? Read between the lines. Now, it's a funny phrase that when we say read between the lines, because there's nothing in between the lines, just white. But what we mean is, what also extra bits of information do we know from this? If I said Mr. Evan scrunched up his face at the class, it doesn't say Mr. Evan is angry, but you get the idea of that because of what my face is doing. Because you know, when someone might scrunch up their face, they are angry. Mr. Evan entered this labyrinth and shivered. That might tell you that it's cold. That might also tell you that he was scared. We don't know which one, because it hasn't actually told us, but we know that when people shiver, they might feel cold, they might be scared. So, reading between the lines, find the bit of text that helps you work out the answer, and then answer the question. Now, I really like this frog picture here. So you get information, evidence from the text. So you look at what's there and you use that. Then you also think about what you know and the natural inference. So this is why inference is really hard. It's not just give me information from the text. It's more than that. It's give me information, but also think about what you know about that question. Okay? So I know we've done this before, I'm just really focusing in on it. Okay, so we've got an example here. So this is the beginning of the book again, so I'm going to read through it. You can read it, and then I'm going to put a question up. My earliest memories are a confusion of hilly fields and dark, damp stables, and rats that scampered along the beams above my head. But I remember well enough the day of the horse sale. The terror of it stayed with me all my life. How do you know the stables were not ideal? Explain using the text. Now, we get a feeling from what the stables are like in here, but it doesn't say that they're not ideal, does it? It doesn't say that they weren't perfect, but there's things that we think, you know what, that doesn't sound great. And because it doesn't sound great, we get the idea that it's not ideal. So, my earliest memories are of confusion of hilly fields, dark, damp stables, and rats that scampered along the beams above my heads. So we've got rats above their heads, and then also we've got dark, damp stables. That all gives us the impression that they're not ideal. So, although we can say that we think they're not ideal, we can't be 100% sure, because maybe horses really like dark and damp. Maybe they like the rats scampering along the along the beams. But we get the impression that it's probably not that great. Okay? So, what do we do when we get to a word and we can't read it? We look at the letters, we make the sounds, we blend the sounds together. We break them into syllable chunks, or we look for words within words. What do we do if we get to a word and we don't know what it means? We reread the sentence and look for clues. And we read the sentence before and read the sentence after. We can also think about what word class is it, a verb, is it an adjective, is it a noun? On top of that, we can also think about what's the general gist that we get from the text. What do we learn from that bit of text, and how does it help us understand what's going to come next, or understand what's going on? So, what I'd like you to do now is just have a real quick think. What's happened in the book so far? So on your piece of paper, on the Google Drive, I'm going to have this question. What's happened in the book so far? And I only want the key events, and I want no more than 3 lines, and I want you to tell me what's happened. I don't want any description. I don't want to hear anything about Joey or anything like that. I just want the real bare information about what's happened that tells me how I can get to the story now. Imagine one of your friends is ill for the last week and they haven't been able to do this, and then you need to tell them what's happened in the story up to this page. So, what would you tell them to make sure that they are up to speed? Oh, sorry, so you're going to write this on your piece of paper, so I don't need to pause or do anything here, because we're just going to get on with the next bit. Okay, new words in this one. Oh, sorry. Where's it gone? There. New words in this one. So, vicious. Vicious means to be violent or deliberately cruel. So it's when you're doing something that's not very nice. And if someone was said to be particularly vicious, it would not be a nice thing to say. Tame. So it's not dangerous or frightened of people. Domesticated animals. When we say domesticated, if we say something domestic, it means it's normally at home. So domestic leagues of football are the leagues that are played in the country, like the Premier League. The Champions League is a European league, so we wouldn't call it domestic. So if it's a domesticated animal, it's an animal that can normally live with you at your home. So that's something like a dog or something like that. Also, it's something that feels comfortable in that environment and not so much in the wild. So if you see here, you've got the cheetah, and this cheetah is obviously normally a wild animal, but it's humans like giving him a rub. Now that means that the animal is tame. He's not going to bite his hand. He's not wild anymore. Next word is resolution. So a decision to do something or behave in a certain manner, or finding a solution to a problem. So we have 2 meanings. So if you've got a problem with a friend, someone might say you need to find a resolution to this, and that then means you need to find an answer. The other way is to decide to do something, to work in a certain way. Now, the common way we'll hear that is New Year's resolution. I'm sure you've all heard that. What's your resolution? So it's the idea of what do you want to do? What's your aim? So it comes from the noun form of the verb resolve. So to resolve something is to fix something. Dismissively. Now, if you were to dismiss something, you're casting it aside. You're saying it's not important. You're almost ignoring it. So if you're dismissive, it means that you're doing that. You're casting it aside. You're not really paying it attention. You're pushing it. You're saying no, not right now. If you're dismissively, we've turned that word into an adverb to describe the action. So Mr. Everton dismissively put his hand across. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I was going to say Mr. put his hand across. That doesn't make sense. My example doesn't work. So I can't think of one now. You can come up with one. So dismissively, Mr. Everton waved his hand dismissively at the child. So it means like I'm sort of not paying attention. I'm not saying don't. I'm saying don't talk, not right now, or something like that. You're dismissing it. So you're showing that you do not think something is worth considering. You're saying no, that's not an argument. If I said, look, we've got a problem. Lunch times, we are spending too long eating, and it means that we're late sometimes getting back up. What could we do to fix that problem? If someone then said, Mr. Evident, I think the way we could solve this is by making it lunchtime 4 hours long, I might dismiss that argument. I might say, no, and I would think it's not worth considering. It's not even worth thinking about making lunch that long. So dismissive is not caring about something. So here's the text. I'd like you to pause it now, and I'd like you to read through the text. I'm actually not going to answer. I'm only going to do a couple of the questions for this one. I want you to do them on the computer yourself. So the text is still available in the Google Drive as well, in Google Classrooms. You can answer the questions on the piece of paper. So pause it now, and then I'll read it through with you afterwards. Okie doke. So hopefully you've read through it. I'm going to now read it as well. Albert, last night, I'm sure. There we go. Okay. He could have killed me. Now I'm warning you, if that animal is not ploughing straight as an arrow inside a week, he'll be sold. And that's a promise. It's up to you. You say you can deal with him, and I'll give you just one chance. He won't let me go near him. He's wild and vicious, and unless you make it your business to tame him and train him inside that week, he's going. Do you understand? That horse has to earn his keep, like everyone else around here. I don't care how pretty he is. That horse has got to learn how to work. And I'll promise you another thing, Albert. If I have to lose that bet, then he has to go. He dropped the collar on the ground and turned on his heel to go. Father, said Albert, with resolution in his voice, I'll train Joey. I'll train him to plough all right, but you must promise never to raise a whip to him again. He can't be handled that way. I know him, Father. I know him as if he were my own brother. You train him, Albert. You handle him. Don't care how you do it. I don't want to know, said his father dismissively. I'll never go near that brute again. I'd shoot him first. But when Albert came into the stable, it was not to soothe me as he usually did, nor talk to me gently. Inside, he walked up to me and looked me hard in the eye. So, first question is going to be, what does the horse need to do? I'm going to help you with this one, and then I'm going to put the rest of the questions up, and then you just need to answer them. What does the horse need to do? So this is just a retrieval question, basically. You need to give me some information. Okay, now I think there's not many keywords we can look for in this question, as in that's going to help us. We're just going to have to remember what happened in the text. So I remember something he said. He needs to do something, otherwise he's going to get rid of the horse up at the top. So let's have a look. He could have killed me. Now I'm warning you that if this animal is not ploughing as straight as an arrow inside a week, he'll be sold, and that's a promise. What does the horse need to do? Plough straight as an arrow inside a week. That's it. Okay? So that's that one, and then I will then leave the rest of the questions, and you can do them on your own. Okay? So I'll pop them up. They're all on the drive. You can have a look at them here. If you want, you can pause and do it here, or you can do it afterwards. Okay then, thanks very much. Speak to you next time.